It has been quite the journey since I started learning how to design levels and learned how to use the versatile modeling tools within Unreal. Last week's video was a product of having no time and the experimentation of my lessons. I would like to consider it a final project of sorts for my own personal class. So naturally, after I had tried designing the first area, I wasn't happy with it. But anyway, the whole process was to understand what I needed to do and how I wanted to do it. I do like starting with a diagram, a rough flow of the paths and what the player will encounter there. Of course, for this part, I went with the old reliable and used MS Paint. I've been using this program ever since I got my hands on a computer. At that time, we had floppy disks and dial-up connection. That's sort of on topic because the aesthetic of my game should be similar to the ones from that period. What I've learned from making that first area is that the locations I'm making should be a lot longer, wider, or lengthier than I had first imagined, because the base speed or the movement of which things are walking isn't slow. The first level I made was tight, constricted, and small. This next one isn't that much larger, but at least it has more space to walk and for the player to breathe and look around. I kept it fairly simple, as this is supposed to be the tutorial zone. There are currently 3 paths that I've set out and I'm still refining. I've also made a reusable door that can either have 2 doors or a single one. It can function as a one-sided door that can only be opened on a specific side. This is a one-way path, or this is a thing to unlock shortcuts. The more I talk about this area and show it off here, I'm a little worried about spoiling the game. But since it's just the first area, I'm sure I'm going to make a lot more changes on the way. The space was a lot more open before. Then while I was designing it and fleshing things out, I realized I could use the gravestones to form a maze. It made the path more interesting rather than simply walking straight to the end. For the enemy placements and their quantity, I'm constantly going to be tweaking them. These very slow zombies barely serve as a challenge even in a group. The ones with swords at least are more dangerous. Should I make the zombies more dangerous or should I keep them as is? As far as I can tell, this first area is going to be the most important phase in development for me. This is where I will finalize how the gameplay loop feels and works. This is where I'll be implementing all the tools and mechanics that I feel are required or are still missing. It has places to explore, things to pick up, enemies to fight, and a boss to defeat. That's already everything I need and want. I've also implemented a weather/fog system that activates using a trigger. It also uses a data table where I can input the variables once and never have to worry about getting them wrong. I'm really happy about this because it's so simple and versatile. One of my favorite things with the retro graphics pack that I use is called the screen door transparency. This causes the material to fade based on its distance to the camera. This can be used either to fade things in or fade things out. I've been using this on static objects in the world that could obscure the player's view. You could already see it in last week's video, but obviously I didn't talk about it. The gravestones fade, as well as the trees and its leaves. Camera's invisibility is always an issue in games. This material doesn't fix every problem, of course, but it solves a typical problem in a very gorgeous manner. One of the paths goes underneath the entire tutorial zone and skips the whole first area. It's a way to get past the tutorial, but it won't be that easy, of course. I'm planning to put a difficult and challenging enemy in the way of the player. Perhaps the player can try to run past this enemy, or maybe I'll have it mandatory to defeat this challenging entity in order to open the exit. But anyway, once they get through this path, it will lead to the rest of the game, and the player will have entirely skipped the first area, which I don't mind at all. I added bushes and trees to make the area look unkempt and neglected. So far, I'm liking the aesthetic and appearance of this zone area level. There's a lot of ideas I have to make it even look more exciting, but since it's the first area, I don't want to go overboard. As much as I want to wow, amaze, or overwhelm the player, I shouldn't try too much or too hard in the beginning. I want to keep the player interested. I need to entice them to move forward, to explore, to be curious and brave. Sometimes less is more. And right now I want to start simple and small and work my way up to more grand and spectacular sights. The main path has a step, and this very first step here is already making a statement. For the player to get up, they must jump. The rest of the way requires only walking or running, but it shows that jumping is present in this game, and it's going to be essential in the journey ahead. My to-do list only grows longer, especially the more I accomplish things. I'm ecstatic about my progress as I can see the game taking place and forming right in front of me. It will be a while before I finish this first area. I need to get the tutorial just right. But man, I truly love making games. Peace out.